Hi, everyone. I was given permission to ask Michele whatever questions I wanted. And so this is what we're going to do today. So I'm going to let Michele introduce herself because I could never do her justice. So go ahead and tell us about yourself, Michele.
Hello, everyone. Okay. So I am psychic since birth, so what we call a natural intuitive, and my mid-20s started channeling the spiritual hierarchy and the oversouls. So I'm a conscious channel and also a trance channel. So I go into trance as well. And I also receive visions. I have since a little girl, but probably in my late 20s, they kind of ramped up more, more frequency. And I think because of my interest in metaphysics and spirituality. So I've studied the occult, tarot, all kinds of divination, work with archetypes as well, as a transpersonal psychologist, transpersonal therapist, hypnotherapist. So anyway, you could go to soulplayground.life if you want to know more. Basically, I really wanted Jill to connect with Jill to do this is that a lot of people have asked me questions over the years. Some have been recorded, my answers and visions or channel guidance or insights that I've received over the years. Some of it not. Some of it was just in live channeling sessions or workshop sessions. But of late, I've had a lot of people ask me more specific questions. And what I learned is the question opens the channel. Now, when I started doing this, I also can remote view. I mean, I get all the information in a multiple forms. So that's how I just open up. I just open up to everything, basically. So I didn't really think of specializing, like I do this, I do that. So the consequence of that is, depending who's in front of me or what the question is, that opens the channel. That's the information that I will start getting. So when I worked a lot with stockbrokers and traders, they were asking a lot about the market and finance. And those are the answers that I would get. Or sometimes I've worked with venture capitalists, and they're asking about investments or companies or what's happening overseas. And I don't necessarily have to have a background in the information to get it. I get a lot of times information that there's no way that I would know that rationally because I haven't studied it or I have no interest in it. So it's easier if someone asks me something, because also I get a lot of information. Like if people say what's going on or what's happening, I'm going to get just a floodgate all over the place of a lot of different information. So Jill so kindly just said that she would ask questions and kind of moderate and manage the energy.
Well, on that note, since you did talk about the stock market and investments, that was on my list. So let's talk a little bit about that. You mentioned that you had gotten a lot of information about what's been going on for the next 4 years. You've talked about that a lot in your videos. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've seen, or if you've seen anything about the stock market or investments in general?
Yeah, I definitely have. And I want to go back actually to one of my, an early prediction of when I saw the Berlin Wall coming down. That's a long time ago. And that was because a couple had come to me that wanted to know about finance, and they were going back to Germany to visit. And right away I said, oh my God, the wall is coming down. Then they said, oh, that makes a difference. I said, yeah, it's coming down. The wall is coming down. And I have really no interest in politics. And they said, oh, should we get our money out? And I said, yes. And months later, a year later, I got a nice email thanking me for saving them. They were able to save their investments. So I get a lot that what's with the collective. So I'm gonna kind of work up into the present. Around the mid 90s, I started seeing and getting messages from my guides that there was being an even playing field. And at that time, I was working with quite a lot of stockbrokers, traders, venture capitalists, angel investors. And I was telling them in small groups and individually that I saw everybody trading. That was the vision I saw with people on computers. And I heard everyday people will be trading. will be investing and will be in the stock market. And I said, those seats are going to be gone. They're very expensive seats, trading seats, like around 740,000 or something a year, I think it was at the time. And I was told, no, that'll never happen. People don't know how to trade. And then if you remember, shortly after that, Ameritrade and other kinds of E-Trade started coming out. So a lot of what I see, even though it might be at first a little alarming or scary or, very disruptive to the present system, it is the impulse of spirit, God, the all that is, as an energy, the creative aspect of everything and everyone of the universe, creating things through us and through other people and through these disruptions, through these innovations and inventions that are literally leveling the playing field, that it's going to be less of a hierarchical system. That's why a lot is breaking down. And of course, I still had people telling me that this wasn't going to last or wasn't going to happen. Another prediction I had made was on reality TV. And I was told, because I have a lot of clients in the TV and film industry and producers and showrunners, actors and directors. And they told me, oh, no, this is only because of the strike. And I said, no, real stories, real people. There's a realness that's coming in where people are going to want to see regular people, again, the regular person, the collective, again, that hierarchy leveling. So it opens up for more creativity. We are in the time of the creative economy, where it's about inspiration, motivation, and creating in new ways. So what happened? Reality TV, and it's still here. And again, I'm sharing this with people, with you, because you can really look and see, if you really have the eyes to see, as they say metaphysically, the psychic eyes. If you just are observant, you can see more reality TV. There became less soap operas. I think there's only one or two. So we're moving away from emotionalism and drama. So what this does mean is, yes, disruptions in all systems, and that's the awakenings. It's an awakening happening in many sectors: educational, environmental, in relationships, in finance, and housing. Whatever brings the collective, the individual, more into focus. I do see fluctuations in the stock market. I feel that it's very propped up. Eventually, there will be perhaps a two-tier system, maybe 3 tiers, what I hear, where there will be some kind of universal or basic income for those that want it or need it. I do feel, and what I've been shown, that there will be digital currency, but I do not see finance or money, what people call fiat money, completely gone, but it'll be winding out or weeding out. I would say what I have been shown, and I guess I got to do a disclaimer on the whole video. I'm not a business consultant, financial consultant. I'm just saying that what I've seen, and I have been tested. My psychic ability is about 97 to 98% accuracy. So I'm not 100% because I'm not, I'm human. But what I have seen is things like real property, housing, the basics will be really good investments, but also in jeopardy. Now, the thing is, with these messages and these channelings, it's pockets where this happens. So there could be one area where housing really blows up and does really well, and other areas where it's depreciating. Okay. So, and I know that's always how it is to some degree, but I feel like you're going to see much more of that and much more of a disparity. Especially I feel in more of the inner cities. Okay. There is this movement, and will be, what I saw, people moving away from even coastal, moving more inland. And I also feel, what I was shown, that that's also because of climate changes and changes to the coastline. I was shown a lot of the coastline would be, there being attrition or erosion, a wearing away. Now let's think about it. A coastline is a system. Everything we have is a system. We're in a system right now doing this interview, this talk, this sharing. You click on to watch this, you have a certain expectation within the system. Like, I'm not going to start talking about baseball all of a sudden, right? So that the system of the planet is having a lot of changes. So the very nature of how we live and what we focus on is changing. And so we're in the part of the awakenings that's called the Converging Flow. Many people have been awakening. We've been for the last couple of years, and it's going to get more extreme in the rude awakening, where in part of that rude awakening is a divergence, the diverging flow. There's a separating the wheat from the chaff, some people say. There's a pulling apart, but underneath that, there is this coming together. So I would say homes, you want to be in a place or invest in a base, a foundation, if that's your soul call. Some people will be more remote. I also was showing that many people would live a week or 2 weeks with friends or family, maybe a month or 2 months. And I did see that there would be much more local travel and a lot of travel by car. So somebody may, invest, let's say, in housing or a house or a home or a homestead or multiple properties. You're going to see much more of that, where either they're renting it out or multiple people are buying in to those properties and building. You're going to see a lot more modular homes. You're going to see a lot of more people wanting real property. They want the property, whether they build on it or not. I do feel that the housing is very, for many, will be very solid, will be very, because a lot of people, it's going to be bringing things more to the everyday living. The small things are going to become even more important.
That makes sense. Can we get back to the stock market for a second, though? I just want to ask about the timeline of the changes that you described.
I feel they're already happening. I feel
Okay.
A lot is masked. I would say next year, probably March, April on, you're going to see some changes or fluctuations. So I feel like one of the biggest changes that I've always seen is with the Bitcoin, that I feel like there will be a digital currency, probably some kind of grandfather clause, where it's like you can trade this in for this amount of money. I do feel that there will be, again, this lessening of money being circulated. And that's when you're going to see more of the problems. I actually hear psychically that the problems are there, but they're being masked. So whether you want to say the economy is being propped up, I feel more of the fluctuation or scarcity is going to come when people are starting to realize that there's not as much free cash, or they can't use their cash as readily as they used to be able to. That I do see as the next thing coming, where companies, stores are not taking cash. It's got to be a credit card or a debit card. You're also going to see the debit or credit card happening much more quickly, where there used to be a 2-day, 3-day hold. You're going to see less and less of that. The thing is, these changes are happening so small. So psychically, they're already there. I see them. It's just to have them enacted or played out on the denser physical realm. It takes much more time for us to notice it, or to impinge in the society. That's why plan. Like, I was guided to work online years and years ago, and much to a lot of people's dismay. Now, for my guides and my higher self, one of the reasons was for people to create their own sacred space at home. But then the last couple of years, I started seeing more of that. And I actually talked to some of my clients and said, there's something coming, or you really should work online more, or don't get that office, or, or if you're working at the hospital, have a backup. Because I don't feel we've been, and as a therapist, I could say we've been in this 18-month or plus pattern interrupt. That's very hard to go back to. And there's a lot of other reasons why, again, and if we look at the innate intelligence of the all that is, if we look at the direction of spirit, we could not move into that next level of humanity, of connecting more to the soul, living from the soul, which is creativity. We could not with the way that we were living before, with the hours driving back and forth, so a lot is going to change. I do feel, though, unfortunately or unfortunately, I do feel like people's income, in some companies or corporations will drop because some of this will be automated, outsourced, or they will say, you're working from home, or, you're doing this or that. But that doesn't mean that the people won't necessarily have the same level of income. Part of what's coming is not to depend on income coming from one source. I've been guided to say 3 to 5 sources. So there's going to be a lot of diversification ultimately. So that idea of having one job within a career for 20, 25, 30, 35 years, for a lot of people, for more and more and more people, and eventually everyone will be gone. So things like consulting, you'll see companies, divesting, breaking off, or merging with another, and then maybe laying people off, or I don't think it's going to be called that, but then bringing them back on as a more of a consultant or contract worker, freelance, gig economy. Those kinds of things are really going to start having much more momentum. So if you know what you're doing in the market, you can get in, get out, then I think you could do good. I feel like long-term investments, unless obviously things like obviously medical, healthcare, anything with devices, because this age is also a lot about devices, ways to connect, help, inspire people. You're going to see much more of that. You're going to see, we've already been seeing it, but I'm even seeing it further. There's a next incarnation, even with apps or connecting to people, maybe through holographically, where you're being helped or supported. So things a lot about how to do something is going to take much more, and creative, anything that has to do with making people much more creative in their productivity in a creative way. So you're going to see a falling off of kind of more the manual things. You're going to see much more automation all the way around. And of course, that is going to affect certain things within, the stock market. I kind of feel next year there's some big changes. A lot of what I've been shown, I've been shown things over the years since the late 80s, mid 90s, especially in the 2000s, from about 2003 to 2014. The visions about the pandemic and the things around that came up between, I believe it was 2017 to 2018. A lot of disruption that is jarring seems to happen between 2020, which my guides told me years ago that would be a turning point for humanity. I thought it was so far away, when I heard that, when they told me this. And huge 2020, 2025, and then between 2045 and 2050. And by 2050, it would be hard to even recognize the world that we live in. There would be that many changes of how we live, and some of that smart cities, people living much more industrially, but then at the same time, people living also more agriculturally, more off the land. One of the things you're going to see that causes a lot of the disruption is that, again, it's happening in pockets. And I do feel that there will be something else other than the stock market that we have, is one other thing that I was shown. I know there's NASDAQ and there's the Dow. But again, there's some really intrinsic changes, and there's going to have to be, because a lot of people are going to be forging their own economy, the underground economy, alternative economy, well as underground railroad, of getting people in and out of cities and places that are restricted for various reasons.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, that was one
Tell me
thing that
more
I was
about
shown.
that was on my list.
Yeah, what I was shown was not just the pandemic. And when I received the visions about this, they didn't say coronavirus, they said the pandemic. Certain areas that people won't be able to go because they're not vaccinated. And it seemed to, what I was shown, like 3 different vaccines, one that handles multiple, then these boosts. So already in the visions of 2017, that was shown. So not being able to get into places, and not just states, but also cities or certain areas. Due to that, people were being snuck in. Now, I also was shown goods and services, which when I was channeling all this, when I received, well, some of it was channeled, some of it was visions where it was like watching a movie screen. And I was even in the screen walking around talking to different friends on the phone, especially at night, which is what I do now. So it's kind of interesting to see it playing out. But it showed, because of trekking, people not being able to get goods in, that there would be, now they're calling it's already happening. A lot of the visions I got, they're already happening. But in the vision, they didn't say disruption to the supply chain. It's just that things weren't on the shelf beyond the toilet paper and that kind of thing. Foods, certain products that you might like are all of a sudden gone, or the company's gone, or they no longer make 3 of something, but 1 of something, or you couldn't get it in. Now, I was shown there was multiple reasons for this. Some of it was due to, yes, illness or somebody testing positive and then everybody not being able to go in. But it did show also people not coming back to work. Also, companies not hiring enough. Now, maybe that's because they can't get them now, So I saw goods and services. I saw certain people. Now, this may also be because of the vaccine. I don't know, because people not getting it, that they may not be able to get certain supplies in. And it showed certain people buying supplies for people and food and taking it to various communities or groups. Now, some of these people, they seem to have a business. Maybe they had a local store, and maybe it's making money on the site. Now, I didn't see, what I was shown, I didn't see price gouging. I wasn't seeing that. I was seeing much more of a collective, where some of the larger stores or outlets, people weren't going to them for some reason. They were not shopping or going there. They were shopping through these kind of outposts. Now, the other thing that I saw was a lot of domestic terrorism, which we did see some of that already. We have seen some of that, but you're going to see even more uprising. Some of it's peaceful protest, some of it's angry protest. Some of it is actually a lot targeting, especially local governmental. Again, I have to remember and I keep saying this, but the guides keep, telling me to remind people, converging flow means everything, right? Good, bad, everything happening all at once, the amazing, the wonderful, the love, the coming together. But it also means that everything's happening. It's something with climate, it's something with banking, it's something with money, it's something with the vaccine, it's something with, what are those people that, are militia types, okay, or other groups. So it's very disruptive. That's the main thing I can say. There's just a lot of disruption. And one of the ways it showed a clamping down was that people wouldn't be able to go into travel or go into certain states and or cities or communities unless they had an ID, like a driver's license, to show that they're going, that they live there. Because some of the things that happened, and I saw like little bombs, maybe they're like pipe bombs, is that people would be not necessarily bussed in, but like over like weeks or months, would be driving in, like that they would be traveling, that they would actually be preparing to do some kind of more disruptive, aggressive, and sometimes unfortunately harmful kind of protest within an ongoing marching protest, like picketing, but also towards certain buildings or offices. So it's going to happen a few times, and then it showed the authorities, federal and local, saying, okay, we don't know when these people come here or how long they've been. Almost, I feel like, I guess you would maybe call it like a sleeper cell, which you call, with international terrorism. So that is something that maybe next year, but could be more of in the following year. A lot of what I channeled and with the visions that I had, I was told the 4 visions for 4 nights, nights and early morning, were 4 years. So that would put us that 2020 to 2024. I did see some states succeeding, some states being cut in half. One of them will be California. I did see the federal government. I was told that there would not be federal taxation at some point, that, and it would be called something differently than taxes, would be more state and by city and community, that certain communities would have like a surcharge for certain things. I mean, we're going to have a lot of, not only people moving out of the system, and by the way, the government and the shadow government or cabal or Bilderberg group, steering committee, whatever you want to call it, they have psychics, channelers, astrologers. They know this timeline. That's why this big push, because they tried to have this agenda in the mid to 80s, and this whole tracking and tracing and the currency, and it just, the technology wasn't there, but also people weren't as embracing of the technology. So this has been planned. Obviously there's always little surprises along the way, but the basic, there's a lot of, that goes off, and there's just a lot of different parts to what's going on.
So you said something about money. Banks are not, stores not taking cash. It made me wonder if that's part of the tracing system, because obviously if I use my credit card, they know where it's been.
Yes.
Will that leave certain groups out? Because I know there's some, ethnicities that have a harder time, people have poor credit, have a harder time getting these cards. Is that going to make it so those people can't just buy stuff?
Yes, well, that's probably also why I'm seeing, again, a lot of what I receive, the visions or the channeled information, I receive it kind of stark, but then we later see how it plays out or why, the common sense, or you start seeing, that's why the underground economy, underground railroad, but that's also one of the tracking and tracing will be with this kind of generalized income, universal income, coming in. So
what's the timeline on that? You've mentioned it a few times. What's the timeline on that?
It's not hard and fast. I would probably say let me see. It feels like 2023, 2024, it especially maybe even more to 2024. Now, mind you, some things happened much more quickly. When I had this, first of all, when I had the visions, that didn't happen. It happened a few years later. But some of the stuff that I had in the visions began to happen more quickly. Like I did see the vaccine cards. But then all of a sudden, in the visions, I saw vaccine cards, which people had for a while. They were laminating the cards and they were unfolding the paper. And then all of a sudden it went to digital, rather quickly. So there is this adaptable, this is where I call it mitigating consciousness. This is where, unfortunately, the more people that subscribe and are led, the faster these things happen, or the more extreme. So if there was more resistance, it wouldn't be as extreme.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we have some free will and how much will to some degree. I mean, the hardship and the limitation, not so much. That's why people are going to be getting in their own groups and moving. My sense is, and also I do feel a little bit next year and for sure 2023, you're going to see less censoring. A lot of what's been censored or hidden is going to start coming out more. And that's where there's also going to be that civil unrest. And because some people are going to go, oh my God, I was fooled. What's really going on? Or this happened. And other people, I told you so. And boom, you're going to really, if you didn't do this, if you weren't getting the app and the tracking and tracing, because that's what's wanted. And people have asked me when I've channeled this, well, we're not paying this or through the insurance, but you have to think it's about a system. It doesn't matter if I'm the person printing up the money and giving it to my friend. It's still, you know what I'm saying? It's still getting passed on. Even if you're not paying for some of this, or you're only paying, eventually these apps that are free will be charged.
There's a concept in marketing that if the product is free, you are the product.
Oh,
when you've said that, I've always thought about that. I'm the product. What are they getting from me?
Yes. Well, imagine if you had the bulk, because there's always going to be the outliers. And those are us that are bridging to the new, but there's always going to be a certain group that not only, I mean, some maybe not being impassioned in their life or having something that they really want to do or care about. Not everybody's, meant to do that in their life, or some just needing a certain amount of income, or some due to changes in the economy, the job sphere, due to automation, and just less demand, will need a basic income. And this was already tested out. I mean, this is some of this is Vision's channeled info, but on regular news, they already talked about it, that during the pandemic in 2020, they were already tracking everyone's habits. And what they found was the majority of people stayed home, got the assisted income, governmental and, from the job, the unemployment, and drank a lot. Opioid went up, and alcohol. And notice there was no shortage of alcohol. Toilet paper we couldn't get, but every kind of alcohol was available. And they spent money online.
I may have done a little bit of that myself too,
Yeah.
So I'm not going to sit in judgment on anyone for that.
There's no judgment. It's not doing it a little, but it showed that a certain group, that's all they did for whatever reason. I'm not judging. I'm just saying what that means is that when there's a situation, and there will be, where that is occurring again, whether you want to say from breakouts or, not job availability or not wanting to come back, somebody is still making a lot of money. Companies are making a lot of money off of this. And that's the whole idea. It's a modern feudal state. We have the same system that we've had for thousands of years, whether Babylon, ancient Greece, ancient Roman times. We have the same system. We even have some of the same arena, the Colosseum, Long Beach Arena. Go to the concert, the Colosseum or arenas in, for entertainment. And it's not a judgment. It's just that's the system is a very entrenched system. And it keeps people in this. We need distractions. They're fun. I love entertainment. I like going down, all that's great. But it's kept people asleep, because then there's the next level, the rude awakening of, oh, my job isn't really that safe. And what am I really getting by working, doing this? It's really not going anywhere. So that group, some of those are really waking up and going, I want more, I want lifestyle. And that's what the soul is about. It's about our life, our style of living, how we live, living much more consciously. But that's going to mean a disruption in how people in that group that are looking, how can I pass on this income, this 7 generations? You know, they're not even thinking just of themselves and the power, but passing it on. You know, and I did a session for someone that worked very high up, a doctor in the White House, and I was actually after the session, they were trying to debunk me because a friend of mine has a referral company for healing and massage and acupuncture, and I did healing work. I did energetic healing work on this person, a doctor. Still have their business card. I have to prove it. But he said, oh, I was here to debunk you. And actually he was speaking, he was a keynote speaker at the AMA in Chicago, which I had no idea that was going on. But I was able to help him and alleviate completely some symptoms and things. So that he told me that, and that was like, I don't know, 95, 90 something around that time, that the government and the pharmaceutical companies were losing billions of dollars because of people like me, holistic healthcare professionals. People were taking supplements and herbs and not doing the pharmaceutical. So back then, billions of dollars. And he said that's why they have a team, psychics, acupuncturists. That's why I got asked, not my cup of tea to do it, but got asked to come on board. I would have to move to Washington, and this was not my thing. But so again, there's a reason this is happening, because the thrust has been away from this. And eventually you're going to see like a huge rising up of the pharmaceutical industry along with medical devices, but also homeopathy, the homeopathic supplements, herbs or herbs rising, also the natural. Eventually you will see not only much more of the natural supplements and things taking over, but also things of people through their state of consciousness, their mind shifting. Okay, so you're going to see things more of color, sound therapy, healing through energy, through vibration, tone, mindset, because eventually this consciousness is within most everyone has that ability to shift and create their own healing. So that it's ways off, but you are going to see more of that. Right now, it's kind of neck and neck, and a little bit the pharmaceutical is coming up a lot more in the mainstream. But with things not working as well and being very costly, and then people start taking certain things that do work just as well or better, you're going to see more people doing that.
So I want to talk about censorship. You mentioned it briefly, but most of the people in your group have blogs, newsletters, healers. We're all concerned because we saw what happened to Dr. McCullough, and even I'm concerned about writing about vitamins, and not having a medical license. Can we talk a little bit about that? What's going to happen there?
Again, I would say that, especially next year, there's going to be much more of a clamping down. Now, I feel like people that are either not that high profile, or they're saying my suggestion is, or this is what I do. It's those that were really making big waves and have more of the background in it coming out that way. I mean, let's look at even Robert Kennedy Jr. has been up against Monsanto and won, and brought out other instances of, vaccines and what they cause, and with children. And I have a dear friend and client that went to some kind of fundraiser for children with autism, and he was the speaker. and this was a few years ago, so pre the pandemic. And some of the stuff that I had told her psychically and channeled about the vaccines and how harmful they can be to many children, and some of them are completely harmful psychically. That was in his talk, and she was at this table and she said, "Oh, my psychic said this, saw this." So those kinds of people, but I do feel there's certain things, unfortunately, we may not be able to get. But again, it's pockets, because just like, NAC, that amino acid complex, there are certain places that aren't carrying it. I think Amazon is not, obviously Whole Foods because it's owned, certain stores, but then in other places you can get it. So it's pushing people to be inventive and innovative and to go around as much as possible. Now, I will say, yes, for time period, certain things may not be as readily available, or like I received in the visions with that underground railroad and underground economy, not just railroad with people, but product and things. There will be good Samaritan people that buy up thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars of things and sell it, or give it away. So you're going to see that whole idea of humanitarianism, philanthropy, of average people, regular people that are just doing well, really helping other people. You are going to see much more of that coming up also.
I love it. Do you want to talk about the vaccines? Because I would love to hear about that.
Okay.
How bad is it?
Yeah. Every time I've asked the guides, the oversouls, I've not gotten for sure not for me to take it, but I wouldn't anyway. I don't take flu shots, but they've never said take it or don't take it. The most thing that is, it's the vaccine. Yes, all of this is causing harm to people, but that's in the mix. That is the depopulation. It also shows, though, aspects wise in astrology of a lot of older people, unfortunately, crossing over, or people that aren't as fit or healthy. So I will toss that in. It's the tracking and tracing, and that opens the door to the control through economics, the economy, and what you will or will not be able to see, the censorship of things online, in social media, in books, because it's not good for you, or it's moving away. So it's almost like the vaccine, as horrible as it is, it can be, because it's not a true vaccine, apparently, whatever. It's more what's around it that's going on, because some people do fine with it. Some people have had adverse reactions. I just happen to be very sensitive, and it's also in my chart, to medications, even supplements. Like I can't take like melatonin that makes people sleepy. I get first few days, but then after that, it's like a Technicolor, like HD wide dream. It's so certain things, 5-HTP. So GABA, I can take that. GABA I can take, but so yeah, I just have I've had odd reactions, and like even with Advil for pain, but like pharmaceutical grade, you get at the doctor. I had anaphylactic shock, the throat closed. So I don't, but it is what is around it, unfortunately. Yeah, it's like they're silent on that. Now, I was told that this was something that was our government, United States, I'm in the United States, was quite aware of this. And it was let loose, not only individually between people, but in the air, literally being sprayed. And that information I received with the visions, between that 2017 and 2018. But then a friend and colleague of mine, when this pandemic started happening and I was sharing the visions, she had said that some people that keep track of the chemtrails noticed that there was bacteria. So not just the aluminum and barium, but there was also bacteria in it. My contention is that's probably why they also say about the mask, kind of to give people a fighting chance. And it's not just people to people, it's in the air. And that's also why a lot of doggies, at one point there was dogs getting, in fact, I have a client that their dog had got COVID. Yeah, it's part of a plan didn't just happen, and it's like a super booster. It was super boosted. That's why it's so odd or strange if you've had it, which I have. It is like nothing ever that you've had. It moves around to try to latch on to what isn't, as everybody has a little area, with your throat, you can feel it moving around. So yeah, but I would say kind of like a bio, warfare. But again, since I did channel it and I received the visions, everything I've ever received a vision on or channeled information on was part of our destiny. So spirit uses everything, even if it's malevolent, even if people that are initiating these plans and projects out of fear, which is greed, whatever the reason, that will ultimately be used for what is life enhancing, because that's life, that's nature. Nature always does what's life enhancing, even if it starts a fire, spontaneous forest fire. It's to have that burn back. So it is causing people, it's a great shift, it's a great awakening, the rude awakening of the lifestyle and a redirection of energy. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the people that are doing this are necessarily light workers, or some people have said that even about Trump. Oh, he must be a light. No. Spirit uses everyone, everybody. If you plant a plant in really good soil and it thrives, it's not the plant that did that. You did that with the soil. So you could look at it as kind of like spirit. So everything will be used. And I have to remind myself of that too, because I foresaw it. So there is a destiny issue to it.
Let me ask on the vaccine. A lot of us, including myself, have gotten it. And is there anything that we can do to mitigate the effects of this product, whatever it's doing to us?
I would say just keep healthy. I think that's going to be one of the hardest things. And if you look at it, even Aquarian age, because it's so individual, is nothing is black and white. So some people may not do really well. Like I remember my dad never got sick, never got the flu, always really good. And the first time he got a flu shot, he was so sick. But then other people would get it and they were fine. I think just take care of your immune system is what I'm hearing. Supplements, eating, it's hard to say because it's and that's why in a way it's very unfair what they're doing, because not everybody responds or reacts the same way to this physiologically. Yes, we don't know what's going to happen down the road, but I do see adverse effects. I am shown that. I do see down the road some adverse effects, but I don't see it with everyone. So that makes it hard to make it a call. And I've asked, I've tuned in, I've meditated, I've gone back into the visions. I've, because they'll be very loud. I mean, before 9/11 happened, I was supposed to be traveling. And 2 weeks before it happened, I had not just vision, I had dreams, like nightmare dreams. And I was getting sucked out of a plane and the planes were blowing up. And my spiritual life coach and therapist at the time said, oh, you must be under a lot of stress. It's not stress. I don't get stressed. Then friends, well-meaning friends, you might be fearful of flying, or are you under anxiety? And I was like, no, something is weird. So I canceled my flight. And then of course that happened. So I do know if something is like, really don't do it, like I get the don't do it for me, but I couldn't come out and tell people, even though I know I've talked to other people that say it has this in it and does that, and it's messing this up and that up. I'm not getting that. I have to be honest. And as much as I try to strain to tune in and ask, it's just quiet. It's crickets.
Makes sense. Well, I appreciate that. Shifting gears a little bit, you talked about some turmoil in different states and some issues. Are there some places that are better or safer than others? Are there places where healers should congregate, places maybe we should stay away from?
You will know where to be by the resonance and where you're drawn. And this is why, we have that anyway in the world where there's, some places there's a skid row and people are living a certain way. And then there's another place that people are living a certain way. And, so you really have to listen, because it's really going to be by resonance. It's not going to be by the title, like healer or astrologer or light worker or yoga person. I mean, you probably have seen this, because unfortunately, some of the people that, propose to be a healer or light worker or for people's rights are in a lot of fear and very polarized about this pandemic, the situation, and being vaccinated. That's not, and I'm sorry, and if you're a starseed, you're not like stars. We don't do that. We try to find the middle way. We try to find. It's about mediation. It's about bringing people together. It's about sovereignty and rights beyond just human rights, but rights universally. So what I was shown is that people are going to be around people that are very different than what they thought they liked or loved or had in common. There's going to be a new knitting together of what fits together, which will be more by resonance, which means this is a big heart opening for many, many people, because you may be sitting next to someone that has very, very differing views, maybe even in the past, maybe even what you might even say that they were racist or didn't understand people of color, but yet you have a lot of connection, or they've helped you through something, or you're helping each other through something. It's almost like a neighborhood trying to stop a flood, and you don't turn around and say, what do you believe in? Or do you believe like get the rags, put this down, get the waters coming out. So we have a whole new game that's beyond our ego perceptions of someone that's supposed to be evolved, or a light worker, or a yogi, or teaches yoga, or a spiritual teacher. That's part of it's by vibration, and it's not pointing fingers or judgment. It's like, okay, what's the resonance here? It's an inside job, right? Our resonance is an inside job. Our consciousness is an inside job. Are you causing division and hate, or are you saying, what do we do now? How do we do this? How do we do this? That's a great thing for people to ask. How do I do this? How do we do this? Because what is going to happen is there's a third energy, kind of like a third wave out of the two, out of the polarity plane. Right now, a lot of people are stuck on one side or the other. I would say the most evolved people, the most conscious, are the ones, when I've talked to some of my clients that say, I'll use this as an example, because it doesn't matter, Biden, Trump, Trumpy, what, all the same. I don't care. Tory, Lori, whatever, all the political, because they're not really running the show. There's behind the scenes, the cabal, or the steering committee, if you want to call it that. But I've had clients say to me, that they were very Trump. I don't really like him now. I kind of like Biden. Oh, no, I don't like Biden now. Or Biden's pushing the vaccine. Oh, Trump got the vaccine. So the ones that I'm that I would say are more conscious are the ones that are going, well, I like that he did this or she did this. I don't really like that. And I never thought I'd say this, but I actually like what he said or she said. But it doesn't make sense because I don't really like him. That's true elevated consciousness coming in, because it's not black and white. It's all these layers to be able to say, I like this that this person said or did. I don't really like them as a person or what they did over here, because what they did over here is great. So what they did over here is not so great, but you cannot deny what was great. Even if the overall you choose someone else or something else, that either or somebody did something I don't like or don't understand, then it's all bad or all good. And that's going to be the rude awakening. Slap, slap. People are going to be really pushed up against it because it's the ego wants to make sense. It doesn't like ambivalence. It doesn't like it doesn't like the unknown, doesn't like ambivalence. It wants to be A or B, red or blue. That's it. That it feels safe. But the thing is, we're going to be moving more and more into the territory with the new emerging consciousness coming through us, creating this new paradigm of the new earth, where it's a multitude of layering of things. And you have to be willing to say, I don't know. This feels right. This doesn't feel right.
I love that. I love the idea of making friends with people from all over, because the news is having us separate.
Yes.
And I love the idea of like a little this, a little that, eating from the buffet in that respect.
Yes.
There was something was on the news I wanted to ask about. We saw last year the electrical grid going out and all those people in Texas dying. I think it was the winter before that. It happened in Colorado as well. Same kind of thing. Do you know anything about that type of situation? Are we seeing more of that, or is that
We'll see more of that. Now, that's part of the earth changes. That's also part of our resonance changing. The earth is becoming much more electrical, which means us as a counterpart need to be more magnetic, which means living more in the meditative state. Just kind of showing up and being guided by resonance. In other words, if I am so striving and pushing or so for something, this kind of, that's electrical. We need some of that, obviously. So earth changes, and that started around 2005, which was when the Converging Flow actually started. If you look back at that time, that's when we had the tsunami. We started having a lot of climate episodes, events that would normally be every 5 years or 50 years or every even 100 years. And some climologists even say, 500 years. So that's everything speeding up and ramping up. The thing is that makes it hard to predict exactly when and where is because of the converging flow. So it could be electrical, it could be flooding. You are going to see much more with water. I see a lot with water. I definitely, I have to say, I do see a lot of situations with water, whether flooding or some places getting a lot of rain, other places not getting as enough, and with coastlines. I love living on the coast. I love that, but that's going to be there. Erosion. There's going to be some things that are happening mid-sea that affect coastline. Now, maybe that's earthquakes. I don't know, but I do feel that there is going to be this kind of moving inward for some. Inland.
Is there anything, anything that we as individuals can do to sort of align ourselves with the better groups? What can we do to change?
That's a good question. Handle your own stuff, the emotional stuff, healing. Make sure that you have a program for healing, unhandled emotions, wounding. Be around supportive people, obviously, as much as you can. Get rest. The self-care, the care of the body is really big in this part of the awakening, because we have to shift our body to be able to handle the higher frequency energy. So there could be sleep disruption, sleep pattern disruption. We have to not only just think about this and open our mind to this higher vibrational frequency energy, higher consciousness, if you will, expanded consciousness, and all that that means, seeing, feeling, responding differently. But our body has to be able to imbibe that, take that in and embody it as well. Things like meditation, being able to be guided, because the game changer will be at some point, the ego, we won't have a functioning ego as we know it, because we will just be showing up basically as a soul. The personality will be fused with the soul being. That's the next game. Not even so much human being. Obviously, it'll be human in human form, but the soul coming through, experiencing and expressing it through the soul, which means much more about resonance, following the resonance, coherence, even if it looks different. So if you are finding yourself in certain situations around certain people and it feels strange, or like, well, why am I here? This is not normally, normally I'm around yoga people and I'm around, I don't know what, skateboarders for some reason. There has to be a reason. There will be a reason based on resonance and your next step. So getting more comfortable with that, more comfortable with the unknown, being able to receive an impression or a download, or you get an intuitive hit, I should do this or call this or do that, do it, and then just let it go to the higher self, the soul, let it expand in your consciousness. So patience will be really big. The thing is, eventually we're just going to be much more creative and self-expressive. So some things that required a lot of time of us and a lot of focus, we won't need to do. They'll either be obsolete, defunct, or automated. Kind of that, there's an app for that. That's a funny saying, but there's a next level to that too, of the app, of how people are going to be working. You are going to see people begin, especially next year, to work much more collaboratively and synergistically. So look for mutually synergistic or mutually beneficial situations, and you'll feel that. It's not just up here. So a lot of it's dropping into the heart, learning to understand the heart's guidance, not emotional, not romantic, not saying that's bad, but it's not romanticized. It's like a feeling of this is right, and it's not polarized. So there may be some things that aren't quite right or ideal, and some things that are, but it has enough of what's right, what feels right, what resonates.
I love that.
Really, it's about getting more into the body.
I love that. So as the energy is wrapping up and I can kind of feel it, is there any final things I didn't think to ask you that you really want us to know, or the guys want us to know?
Not yet. They're saying that things are getting clearer. You asked very good questions.
Yeah, I like that.
Really good. Yeah, really good. You asked really good. Things are getting clear. We'll do it again. Anything you want? No, they're saying the most important was, what can we do? Everything else doesn't matter.
Oh,
yeah. So yeah. Learn to trust your learn to trust the feelings more, the innate intelligence of your being. Have less reliance on what is on the outside, because that will greatly change. That will be greatly changing. You'll be guided.
Love it. Love it. Love it. I'm not going to argue with the spirit guide, but I will say that some of those questions were important to me. I know the guides say it doesn't matter, but there you go. Well, this was a lot of fun, Michele. I appreciate you doing this. I would love to do this again. I'm sure we can come up with more questions. So thank you so much for your time. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Jill. It was beautiful. Thank you so much. Love what you asked.